In today's show, where the Trailblazers stand at the conclusion of the 2025 NBA draft, plus more on the Blazers' pursuit of Yang Hansen. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we've made it to the end of both rounds of the 2025 NBA draft. We'll check in on where the Blazers stand because free agency starts on stinking Monday. The offseason rolls along in earnest. Portland did not make a pick in the second round. We'll talk all about sort of what happened after they didn't do anything other than draft Yang Hansen. And Yang is still remains a polarizing pick in sort of the national media, but I want to talk about the Blazers' pursuit of him and some reporting from various sources around how they landed on him at pick 16. Plus, Caleb Love signs a two-way contract. Blazers filling out the back half of the roster with a Tar Heel legend. We'll talk about that to close the show and some thoughts in general on the NBA draft. But let's talk about what happened. The Blazers came into the second round armed with 0 draft picks. They left with 0 players. That's what happens if you can't make a pick. If you don't have a pick to make, you can't make one. That's like kind of just sort of the basic. That's the basic logic of the math. Of the draft rather. You could buy your way in, but if you send money out in a trade, you could end up with some other limitations. You'd be hard capped at the second apron. That's not going to come up for the Blazers. I can't imagine that they are a team that pays the tax this year, but we shall see. In any case, they didn't do anything. So the move that they made in the draft happened on night 1. I don't love the 2-night draft. I don't love it. I think it from what I understand, it's just way easier for teams. Just way better for like the folks who actually work in NBA teams, and maybe it's better for ESPN or whatever the partners at Disney to broadcast it on two separate nights. But second round's got no juice. It's got no juice. I liked the old 4-hour NBA draft, but the Blazers, they come away with 1 pick in the draft. They traded back from 11 to get Yang Hansen, the 20-year-old Chinese center who's played the last 2 years professionally in the CBA, this Chinese Basketball Association. Yang's gonna come over here. In fact, you are listening to Friday, June 27th show, and Yang's on his way, flying from Brooklyn to Portland. I assume he's already landed as you were listening to this. I assume he's already landed as I'm recording this. Blazers will introduce Yang at a press conference at the team's practice facility on Friday. For my new listeners, this show comes out during the week, so I won't have a show immediately reacting to that press conference, but I will early next week, probably posting sometime Sunday Portland time. We'll talking about what happened at that press conference and looking ahead to free agency. So after they obviously traded for Drew Holiday. They drafted Yang, and this is where the Blazers stand at the end of the draft. They've got 14 players under contract, and they're about $8 million shy of the luxury tax. I can't imagine that they end up a tax team, but they are by virtue of being below the tax, have access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, and then to the taxpayer exception as well. If it just doesn't seem very likely that this team is going to be a tax team, but they do have some wiggle room to add to the roster. An NBA roster is 15 players. They have 1 open roster spot after the draft. One of probably the big reasons that they didn't get into the second round and draft anyone is because 1, they didn't have a draft pick, and 2, like the opportunity cost of filling the 15th roster spot with a second rounder this year that probably didn't appeal to them because they might have to make trades and make some unbalanced trades, it probably behooves them right now to operate with an open roster spot. However, an important note here as we get into it is that 14 players does not include Delano Banton, who is an unrestricted free agent, and it does not include Jabari Walker, who I think will likely end up an unrestricted free agent. because his qualifying offer, he's a veteran with his time of service in the league. He is a restricted free, or he could be a restricted free agent, but the Blazers would have to extend him a qualifying offer. So how that works is the Blazers extend him a qualifying offer, which is an offer sheet for a 1-year contract. Walker signs that QO. He signs that qualifying offer, and then he would become a restricted free agent, which would mean that the Blazers would have the opportunity to match any offer he receives on the open market, or if he doesn't receive an offer, he would just get paid that qualifying offer. The problem is that qualifying offer is higher than his minimum contract number, and I don't think Jabari Walker is going to get more than the minimum based on where he is right now in his career on the market. So if he were to come back to the Blazers, it would just make more sense for him to hit unrestricted free agency and sign at a lower number, perhaps multi-years, whatever it is. But I assume that's my assumption. I literally have done zero reporting on this. This is a total guess. And if you're if you're a recent listener to the program, you know that my educated guesses have been really bad recently. But yeah, that's my guess based on the quick back of the napkin math. This is actually like front of an Excel sheet math. But I assume that Walker will be an unrestricted free agent and Delano Banks will be an unrestricted free agent, and the Blazers will go into free agency, which begins in the middle of the day, 3:00 on Monday, and on Monday afternoon here in Portland, with $8 million below the luxury tax threshold, and probably a need to clean up the roster a little bit. You know, I want to talk about Young in the second segment, and I will, but like when you draft this guy 16 and you make all this, they kind of, they chased him, right? He's 20. He's probably going to take a little bit of seasoning. I don't think you can expect him in year one to be I think right now, as the roster stands, he just straight up won't play. And if they do make some moves for him to play, I think it would be unreasonable for him to. Do you expect Young to be a positive contributor in year one? Just because generally almost every rookie is bad. And two, like he's 20 and he's making a transition from the CBA to the NBA. The Blazers aren't counting on him being good in the fall, though. You make this pick because you think his upside in many, many future seasons to come is there, right? Like you're not banking on like, okay, well, he really needs to play and be good right away. By virtue of making this pick, like he was 19 on draft night, right? Like when you draft a teenager who's making a massive leap in competition level, you kind of understand, like it's baked in that he's going to take a while to get up to speed. And Joe Cronin admitted as much, right? The idea isn't that he's like this plug and play player ready to go. The idea is that he is, that they think he has really high upside and is going to be really good. That, of course, remains to be seen. But I think, like, importantly, the Blazers roster is crowded and doesn't have space for him to play, but I don't know if there's like a ton of incentive for him to play, but there is probably incentive to like specifically try to trade DeAndre Ayton this summer if they can, or at some point before the trade deadline, lest he walk in free agency as he's entering the final year of his contract. And the Blazers in the last two drafts have drafted two centers. Impossible to say a world where, I guess it's possible. There's some real believers out there, but I would very, very slim that DeAndre Ayton could possibly be part of the Blazers' future plans based on the last two draft picks that they've made, Donovan Clingan and Yang Hansen. So the Blazers probably need to make some sort of roster clarifying moves. I think the priority would be probably trading one of Ayton or Rob Williams. I would probably prioritize Ayton, but I don't think the Blazers will necessarily. But I think Rob Williams has basically no trade value because of the injury concern, and Ayton has really challenging trade value because of how much money he's paid, $35 million. And when you're trading for DeAndre Ayton, you're either getting this expiring contract, which could have some value, or you're trading for the right to pay him. And that is, we'll see which teams have the appetite for that. So I think they could trade a center, and I think that makes sense. But I don't think. And I assume they will actively shop DeAndre Ayton. I should assume they will actively try to trade him. Just we'll see what the market is for him and how the Blazers are able to do that. I don't think there'll be players in free agency. The free agent class is not that appealing. They obviously still need like shooting. That's like desperately a thing they need. So in any transaction they make, be it a small free agent signing or trades to kind of balance out the roster, if they can find a taker for Jeremy Grant, I think that would have some real value as well. Although you could argue that Grant was one of the best shooters remaining on the roster. He forgot how to make 2-pointers last year, but he made 3-pointers just fine. Like shooting is a big priority, but they've got a little bit of wiggle room to improve the roster and add some value, add some talent to this team. be it immediate term value or immediate talent to try to win right away, which seems to be the Drew Holiday move suggests that they're trying to win right away. They have some wiggle room. They have a roster spot, $8 million heading into free agency. I want to talk about Yang. The Blazers, when they drafted Yang Hansen, it was always going to be, because it was such a surprise and such a pick so far removed from the consensus thought on where Yang's value was. It was always going to be something that didn't go over particularly well with like sort of the larger media apparatus that covers the league. And let me tell you, it didn't. And I want to talk a little bit about that and a little bit about the pursuit of Yang in the second segment, because it was one of the most surprising picks of in a while, early in the first round. And I think like how they got there and why they did what they did is still worth talking about and interesting because welcome to Rip City Yang. And if you're a new listener who's a Yang fan, what's up? Welcome. I heard from a handful of you over email, and I'm happy to have you on board. Let's do it. Let's talk Yang in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk underwear. My underwear, and it could be your underwear as well. It's SKIMS. You might know SKIMS because they make famously feminine cuts of underwear. Underwear for the femme physique, but now they're making underwear for everybody. That's men, that's women, that's folks. Whoever you are, you can go get yourself some super quality, very comfortable undergarments. It's a perfect balance of comfort and style. SKIMS was nice enough to send me over a couple pairs of underwear, and this is the highest compliment I can pay them. They are indeed extremely comfortable. It's lightweight material that feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. I put them on in the morning, and then I do not think about them for the remainder of my day. Because the worst thing that can happen to you while you are living your life is that you have to consider what's going on with your underwear. That stinks. You're not having a good time if you're living that way. So like, I can wear SKIMS underwear if I'm working out. I can wear SKIMS underwear if I'm just living everyday life, going grocery shopping, sitting at my desk, whatever it might be. And I won't notice them because they're super comfortable and then they don't give you any problems. SKIMS are great. So go get yourself a pair. Whether you want to go shop SKIMS Men's or all of their SKIMS lines, they're available at skims.com. And let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right. Let's talk Yang Hansen. The Blazers surprise the world, right? They trade back from 11. They get to 16. They get Yang. 19-year-old hanging out in the stands, wearing resplendent in a white suit. I believe I said yesterday, and I'll say it again because it's a stupid line. He's rocking the silk shirt. He puts on the Grizzlies hat. Later gets a Blazers hat. His head's too big to snap the snap back in the back. He's just wearing the hat propped on his head all day long, all evening long, I should say, living the dream, right? A young man about to celebrate his 20th birthday, realizing his NBA dream. But the perception, so like in Yang's world, this is a dream come true. There's a video I saw circulating on the internet of the moment his phone blows up and he finds out, yes, indeed, probably from his agent, Rich Paul of Clutch Sports, Portland at 16, it's for real going to happen. We knew they liked you and it's happening. And he's just a big smile, comes down on the stage. He was in the building, right? Yang had a feeling this was going to happen. But nobody else did. Nobody else knew. I mean, my man Rafael Barlow's been writing about Yang since freaking November of 2024. The polarizing prospect who at the time Raf said was a top 40 talent. Top 16, as it turns out. He's in the building, though. And a listener, Mark, I told you I heard from a couple listeners. Mark is an American citizen but living in China. And Mark sent a note saying that that Qingdong, the basketball organization in the CBA, the basketball team that Yang was playing for, kind of alerted folks in the area that the perception was that to tune in to the NBA draft because Yang was going to get drafted. I didn't get a ton of details, and I followed up with Mark, and I didn't hear back. So if you know more about that situation, email me, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. I would love to know what that looks like. I'm super curious. But like in Qingdao, like apparently was like, they also, it was probably through Yang and his people and Clutch Sports, right? That Young was getting buzzed, right? After in his post-draft interview, Young told reporters in Brooklyn that his perception was that he thought he was going to be drafted late in the first round. That's why he was in the building. That's why he's wearing a suit. He was ready to be there because he knew he was going to be drafted. Blazers made his dreams come true a little bit earlier than maybe even Young thought, but he thought the reason, it's 2 nights, right? Like, he didn't show up to night 2. He showed up to night 1 because he had some intel that he was going to get drafted. I think still the Blazers pick stunned people. Sam Vecini said it was one of the most stunning picks of the last decade. Sam Vecini of The Athletic, not a fan of the pick, I will say, but said it was, like the perception when you do make a pick that is so far outside of the consensus, the like immediate draft reactions are always going to be negative. No one's going to say like, yeah, I had this dude way lower on the board, and so, or I don't know who this is, but I looked up the other, like people who just like paid to blog about it, maybe don't like do like hardcore draft analysis. Like, yeah, we're giving this one a bad grade because I don't know who Yang Hansen is. Like, I don't know who that is. So like, of course, the immediate draft grades from like the NBA press range from like pretty freaking bad, like some F's out there, to some like C's, right? Like, no one is, when you make a pick that bucks what is the sort of general thinking on a prospect's range, like, no one is going to say like, yeah, good job. So I don't think you're going to go out there and find, you're going to find someone who's saying like the Blazers did a great job. My like stance here is that I don't know enough about Young to tell him either way. I can say with confidence this was a stunning pick by anyone's standards, right? Like a very, very surprising pick. But the Blazers are, they laid their claim, right? This was their guy. They traded back to get their guy. And what Joe Cronin said last night was 16 was about as far back as he felt comfortable dropping before making a selection. I've seen some speculation on the internet, particularly perusing r/Rip City, that the Minnesota Timberwolves were definitely going to take Young at 17. I cannot find any confirmation anywhere on the internet of that reporting. I think that is generally some speculation. It might be from a source I haven't seen. I'd love for you to share it with me if you see it. But what does appear to be widely believed by a variety of media people, including Sam Vecini, where I first saw it in The Athletic, is that Brooklyn was interested. And Brooklyn had 4 picks from 19 to 27. So they had 19 and then 3 picks in the 20s, right? And they had a real international flavor to their draft. Like they took Yegor Demin from Russia at 8. They took Ben Saraf. They took Nolan Traore. They took a couple Americans and Danny Wolf, and Pittsburgh, North Carolina's own Drake Powell, go Tar Heels, stand up at 22. And like Joe Tsai's Chinese, and he owns the Brooklyn Nets. Like there's reason. You don't need to really. The reason that the perception is the Nets might have taken Young is probably because they were interested in taking Young. And the reason that maybe this got all the way back to Qingdao and China and that organization is because maybe the Nets really had some real interest. It sounds like Brooklyn, in one of their myriad picks late in the first round, and they did end up making all 5 first round picks a record of any NBA team, probably because just weren't that tradable. Picks in the 20s maybe just weren't, like, you just couldn't get value for them. So like, well, we'll just keep them, right? Unless you were able to trade up to 13, those lucky Devil Hawks, right? Or the trade back, from 13, like they didn't have value. It's quite something. So Young's in the building. He's under the impression he's going to get drafted. The Nets reportedly are interested and had a lot of opportunity to do so. And the Blazers made their move. They traded back and they said, we're worried. Like, we don't want to get too close to 19. We don't even want to drop further back. So if the Nets do end up packaging, say, 19 and 22 to move up and get our guy, like, this was the Blazers guy. And Sean Hyken over at Rose Garden Report wrote a piece today about the Blazers' pursuit, multi-year pursuit of Young, starting in 2023. I speculated last night that it almost certainly was the FIBA Asian World Cup in 2022, but it sounds like it was the World Cup in 2023. That's when Yang played against Alex Sarr as an 18-year-old when Sarr was 19 and played pretty well. And that was like when he first got on the Blazers' radar. I'm not going to recap Sean's whole go subscribe to Rose Garden Report and support independent journalism. But like that in 2023, the Blazers kind of like got wind of Yang and then started to like really build their book. I think it is a little overstated that like a 2-year pursuit is something unique. Nowadays in the modern world, guys get scouted a long time. Like American basketball players will get scouted from, junior year of high school through their, if not earlier, but junior year of high school through freshman year of college, right? You'll get a 3-year book on a guy from when he's 17 to 19. The difference is that they did a 2-year book on building a 2-year scouting book on a freaking 17-year-old in China all the way across the world. And that they traded up and made a pick that was sort of no one else saw coming. But I will note this. This is my last thought. Go read Sean's work at Rose Garden Report. It's a good story on sort of the Blazers' pursuit of Yang. It's worth reading. That's rosegardenreport.com. If you're new to the market, I want to make sure you're getting everybody. But I think an important thing here for me, and this is something I probably missed, is that the Blazers really valued Yang, and we had a clue. We knew. They gave us a very, very obvious hint that they liked him, and I just missed it, and I'm not going to miss it again. I want to tell you about that clue in the third segment, plus we'll talk Caleb Love and some other thoughts on the second round of the NBA draft. Join me in that third segment, won't ya? First, though, let's talk about Gametime. It's the place for last-minute tickets. We're done with NBA basketball, but that doesn't mean that you can't go see a ball game with your friends and family. Say you live in Portland and you want to go up to a Mariners game. Well, you can decide at the last minute and still grab great deals on Gametime. You can find tickets easily and with great deals without the stress, even if you wait, even if you're a procrastinator. And with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on fun stuff once you get in the building: food, drinks, merch. Even invite a bigger gang. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the start of the event, whether that's first pitch or kickoff here. If you want to go see some soccer games in Portland with the Thorns and Timbers in action this summer, they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond, and you still listen to Locked On Blazers. I missed an obvious tell how the Blazers felt about Yang Hansen. They loved Yang. They straight up loved Yang, and we should have seen it coming. On May 29th, the Blazers hosted a workout. Asa Newell, Jace Richardson, Liam McNeely, Rasheer Fleming, Will Riley, and Yang Hansen from the Qingdao Eagles in China. And I dismiss this as, yeah, they got some first-round talent, and they also got this big Chinese kid. Stupid. The Blazers, under Joe Cronin, when they target lottery talent, have brought those players into the building. That is the tell. They get them in the building. They want to see them in person. They want to work these players out. They haven't worked out everybody, They haven't worked out like Jabari Walker, who they drafted late in the second round. They didn't get him in the building, right? But so this May 29th workout is the highest profile public workout that they did the entire time. Now, they worked out some other players that were relatively high profile, but these were private workouts. The media wasn't invited. These were closed and later reported private workouts with Kasparz Yakatunis and Derek Queen, Yegor Demine, and Cullen Murray Boyles. Like those players, generally rated much higher, probably than this whole group, and certainly than Yang Hansen in sort of the consensus drafts. But Yang is part of this group with Asa Newell, who's considered first-round talent, Jace Richardson, Liam McNeely, Rasheer Fleming, Will Riley. Rasheer Fleming, first pick of the second round. These are all first-round talents, and Yang. On May 29th, when the Blazers brought Yang into the building, they told us that they valued him at the same level as all of these other first round guys. We should have known. They gave us a clear path. We as a Portland Trailblazers viewing people have to pay closer attention to these draft workouts. They are telling. They have been the most telling aspect of the Cronin era. I will not dismiss I don't know who this teenager from China is next time. Or it's I know him, but he's mocked in the 40s. He's just he's not just a charity invite. This was the dude they wanted, and they brought him in and they told us. Speaking of dudes that have been in the building, Caleb Love was invited to the Blazers draft workout on May 27th. And now Caleb Love, a guard from North Carolina, by way of Arizona, his final 2 years. He was the Pac-12 Player of the Year during the 23-24 season, then went back to Arizona because he didn't have a lot of draft buzz for 24-25. He spent last season finishing up his collegiate career averaging 17 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, shot under 40% from the field and 34%, including 34% from the 3-point line, 89% from the foul line. Caleb Love's a Tar Heel. In 2022, he buried Duke a second time. They invited us back, and we buried Duke a second time, sent Coach K to his funeral again. This is career funeral. The man is still alive, but listen. Caleb Love's a Tar Heel legend. I'm a Chapel Hill kid, and Caleb Love's shot in the 2022 Final Four from the top of the key is one of the most iconic shots in North Carolina history. For my money, I think it is the most important shot of the 21st century for the University of North Carolina, with apologies to my man Luke May. Because beating Duke in the Final Four is a big deal. They won the championship with the Luke May shot, but that's for Locked On Blazers, not Locked On. That's for Locked On Tar Heels, not Locked On Blazers. Caleb Love is, he's a 6'3" guard. I do not think he's an NBA player. I'm gonna be straight up with you. I do not think he's an NBA talent. I've watched a ton of him. I don't watch a ton of college basketball, but I watch every Carolina game. For those of you watching on YouTube, the shirt I'm wearing right now is like a classic Carolina blue t-shirt. I was wearing this in 2022 when Caleb Love hit the shot. I am a true Chapel Hill kid. I just happen to be pushing 40. It happens to all of us. But Love he did not get invited to the NBA Combine. He got invited to the G League Elite Camp, and then he didn't play well enough in the Elite Camp to get an invite to the NBA Combine. But the Blazers nonetheless invited him gave him a 2-way contract. I think this is just a small thing filling out the back half of the roster. He looks like he's like a big physical athlete. He's not very tall, not like super long or super tall. He's relatively long arms, but not like super tall. He's not like a super plus sized point guard. But he's an inefficient scorer, a volume shooter, not a natural passer, physical, and could be a good defender at some point. I like him I'll just root for him. But yeah, I think he's a 2-way guy, and I don't think he has a path to being an NBA player. But hey, when he gets in the game, I'm going to mention him on the show. In any case, go Tar Heels. I digress. The NBA draft was supposed to be about trades, right? They told us. ESPN reported it. Jake Fisher of the Steinline reported that the NBA draft is Timmy Goodtime's been Tim Bontemps said at ESPN, and Jake Fisher from the Steinline reported that the NBA draft was supposed to be the busiest transactional day in league history. But no star players got traded. In fact, no NBA players really got traded during the NBA draft. By my count, 2 NBA players got traded during the NBA draft. Mark Williams and Vasilije Micic. Micic and Williams in the same trade. Micic had to the Suns had to send Micic back to Charlotte, where he originally was from Charlotte, back to Phoenix, but he goes back to Charlotte as part of to make the Williams trade work as Williams heads over to Phoenix. Those are the only 2 players traded on draft night. Kevin Durant got traded beforehand. Drew Holiday got traded beforehand. Desmond Bane in a pretty big trade got traded beforehand. It's not like there weren't fireworks, but there weren't a lot of big trades. And I think this is important for the Blazers because they do have some roster stuff to sort out. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it's they probably should trade one of the centers if possible. They still probably need center depth. Like, you don't want to just like totally punt on that. I don't think like if you're planning on being competitive going into the season with like something like Donovan Mitchell, Duop Reith, and Yang Hansen is like a good idea. That's you're just not gonna be very good. Although I'm probably a pretty big like Donovan Clingan believer in terms of like impact. I don't think you want to like bank on him being a 28 to 35 minute a night guy. It is eventually he'll get there, but I wouldn't do it in October. They probably, if the Blazers can, I think it would be important for them to try to trade Jeremy Grant. So like maybe there's big trade stuff coming. Maybe there'll be some stuff to sort out. I think obviously the Blazers will pursue that. I don't know the general appetite for trading Ayton and Jeremy Grant, but like, or across the league, I should say. I don't know the appetite for like acquiring either of those two gentlemen. I imagine it's relatively low, almost pretty non-existent for Grant and for Ayton just because of his price point. Pretty narrow market. There weren't trades in the second round. The second round has no juice at all. It happens in a weird, quiet version of Barclays. It's no good. It's good for teams, but it's no good for TV. It's no good for me, Mike Richmond. But the Blazers still have stuff to sort out. And so what I think next week is really important for is we get to the beginning of free agency. It starts on Monday. You get the moratorium period where you can agree to contracts, but nothing gets finalized. Then we'll get to July 6th when the moratorium lifts and you can finally, a bunch of the trades will go through. The Drew Holiday trade hasn't been announced or finalized. It could get wrapped into a bunch of other larger trades, or the Blazers could just hold out for as long as possible if they can't wrap it into a larger trade with multiple teams, yada yada yada. They'll just complete it as it has previously been reported, but there's probably still some roster stuff to shake out, and the Blazers, like I said, have an open roster spot to do so. And because there wasn't any action during the NBA draft, you assume there's still a little bit coming on the backside, right? You're still a little bit on the back end of this. There's going to be some trades that happen as we head into free agency, as we head into teams like with. This week, I guess this stretch from the draft to the end of the moratorium at the first week of July, this is when teams have the most roster flexibility, right? Because things are a little bit loosey-goosey with order of operations and how much money you have to spend. The way second round picks work, if you use certain exceptions, they don't even count against your cap until the end of July, so you have another little bit of wiggle room to get stuff done. It's the most flexible teams are ever going to be. If there are going to be trades, it's coming, and the Blazers are, if they want to reconfigure the roster, I believe over the next 2 weeks is the time to do it, almost certainly. And then if they don't get it done, then we're talking into the season and towards the trade deadline. That is going to do it for today's show. Like I said, introductory press conference for Yang with Cronin and Chauncey Billups at the practice facility tomorrow, Friday morning. I'll have you covered from everything that happens from that. We'll talk free agency. We'll look ahead. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Shout out to my new listeners. If you're coming over in here and you're a Yang fan, you're going to get to listen to a lot of Portland Trailblazers shows. Thankful to my new listeners, very thankful to all my old ones. Shout out to my everydayers. If you are new to the program, thanks. If you are old to the program, thanks. Tell your friends about it. Either way, I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.